He had trained her the way that he wanted her to be. And that hurted him when she left him. He would go to the swimming pool. I'd go set the pool up for him so he could lay out by the pool.
For decades, the world knew Graceland as the glimmering home of the king of rock and roll, a place of velvet ropes, guided tours, and a carefully curated legacy. But before it was recognized as a shrine, before the flashbulbs and ticket booths, Graceland was just a house. A lively, chaotic, loving house, where Elvis Presley attempted to live a life behind the icon. And within that house lived a quiet witness, a woman who never sought attention, never sold secrets, and never chased the cameras, Nancy Rooks. Nancy spent 10 years inside Graceland, witnessing the king, not as a legend, but as a man. And in the final days of her life, she finally spoke the truth about what took place behind those gates. A truth that does not match the official narrative and alters everything we thought we knew about Elvis's final hours. Nancy Rooks never appeared on stage, never sang backup, and never ended up in a tabloid. But from 1967 until Elvis's death in 1977, Nancy was a part of the familial rhythm, living, working, and witnessing life behind the gates of that mansion. She was not hired from Hollywood and was not part of the Memphis Mafia. She was the maid that was provided by an agency to cover while another employee was out sick, a one-time fill-in. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, saw something in her, a calm presence, a work ethic, a quiet dignity. He asked her to stay. That one-time job became a decade-long service. She was not just cleaning, she became Elvis's cook, his nighttime companion, his eyes and ears when the cameras were off. Nancy made his comfort food, meatloaf, cornbread, fried pickles, banana and peanut butter sandwiches, and she made it all on his schedule. Midnight. Incredible breakfasts, dinners, and if the king asked for cobbler and ice cream at 3 a.m., Nancy made that happen. But her worth was not only calculated by the meal she prepared, it was also measured in the way she saw him as a man and not a rock god. She was aware of him barefoot, robed, hair disheveled. Sometimes he engaged her, sometimes he just wanted to be withdrawn, sometimes he was friendly, and sometimes he was yearning. And Nancy, more than anyone else, knew when to listen, when to speak, and when to let him be. Elvis had a multitude of people around him, bodyguards, girlfriends, producers, longtime friends. But Nancy was aware of the loneliness he sometimes showed amid those people. She was aware of those moments post-conversive, when he was withdrawn, sometimes friendly, and sometimes yearning. When how he was the milty, orn, only here. She witnessed the ebb of the festivities when the house fell silent. She thought about the weight of it all. Sometimes, in the quiet of the kitchen, Elvis would ask her and his grandmother, Minnie May, to sing a hymn. Not a song, but a moment of peace. Three voices, soft below the chandelier. Nancy never defended herself, never snooped. Everyone sold stories, but never Nancy. Even when former acquaintances, relatives, long-done bodyguards brandished axes, Nancy kept it to herself. She was loyal, protective. And perhaps that's why when she did speak many years later, her words had so much weight to them. When she used her own words in things like The Maid, the Man, and the Fans, and Inside Graceland, Nancy was able to give readers glimpses of the real Elvis, not a scandalous tell-all book, but a real, honest, and gentle picture of a man who appeared to be made of contradictions. And even then, there were things she didn't say, things she only was willing to share at the end of her life when she could hold them no longer. In the summer, Elvis died. The energy in Graceland shifted. It was lighter and more fragile. Elvis still held the title of Elvis, still joked, still was up until dawn, still played rate ball with friends, but Nancy had started to notice things about him, too. He walked with less urgency. He slept more, and his appetite swayed. Some nights he could no longer eat a full plate of chicken and potatoes. Some nights he was only satisfied with a small glass of juice in the mornings. His pain was surfacing in ways that noticing things about him, the kind of details only those who get close to someone would recognize, Nancy always welcomed these changes that she noticed. The upstairs bathroom became his new sanctuary. No one would disturb him in there unless it was a true emergency. He could be in there for hours. Still, no one thought he was dying, even. In fact, Elvis was getting ready to go back on tour. He had shows lined up. He was rehearing, making plans to the people at Graceland. It felt like just another and yet another Elvis reinvention. But Nancy noticed something was off. Lash like the night before he died. It was early morning, August 16th, 1977, and Elvis had just come home from a rate ball game. He was sweaty and tired. Standing on the steps outside the kitchen, Nancy greeted Elvis like she always did. "You want something to eat, Mr. Elvis?" she said. Elvis shook his head. "No, I just want to sleep. But I would like some water." Nancy sent over another maid to fetch him a pitcher of water, the kind you'd use for orange juice, with a side handle. Pauline said later it hit her how quickly he drank it. It was like he hadn't taken a sip of water in days. "I've never seen him drink water like that," she recalled. At the time, they brushed it off like he was hot, he was tired, he just played ball. But looking back, it felt different. It was the last time, the last request. Not for music or fame or comfort, just water. Then he walked upstairs, and hours later, he was found unresponsive. The house erupted into chaos. Paramedics, screams, reporters, panic. But for NY, the most deafening part was the silence that followed, the stillness of that kitchen, the absence of sound, the echo of his voice. Just some water. She carried that moment with her for decades, like a burden, like a truth that no one else really could appreciate. Nancy never claimed Elvis faked his death. She never peddled conspiracy. But near the end of her life, she said something that rattled those around her. "I don't believe he passed away the way they said he did, not really. No, she wasn't talking about a cover-up. No, she meant it more deeply. She thought the story, the easy one, oversimplified him. They said he died from drug abuse, poor health, carelessness. But Nancy thought about a man who was still planning, still trying. She said he was thinking about starting over quietly, somewhere far from Graceland. And that broke her heart. That he didn't want to die. Yes, he was worn down, yes, but not gone. Not yet. In her last days, Nancy began talking more quietly, carefully, like she was exhaling after holding her breath for 45 years. She had nothing to prove, no debts to settle, no fame to pursue. She just wanted people to understand that Elvis Presley was not a cautionary tale, but a man, yes, foolish and complicated, tired, generous, lonely, hopeful. And at the end, all he asked for was water, and contrary to her, helped to start the Elvis craze. From behind the mansion walls, who never sang a song. When she did make her final confession, she said more than 99.99% of the people would ever dare wade into Nancy Rooks didn't wear rhinestone, but her truth sparkled with something much rarer than fame. Loyalty, love, and the bravery to speak at last. If this story passed through you, please share it. Elvis was more than a legend. He was a life worth remembering.